Well, I guess by now you guys have probably heard the news that effective tomorrow, June 15th, Disney will be relaxing all of their social distancing guidelines, and masks will no longer be required for those guests who are fully vaccinated. Now, we covered quite a bit of that in our live stream that we did earlier today, but I thought it would be a good idea to try to distill all of the known information that was updated by Disney today, as well as provide our thoughts, our guidance on some of those questions you might have that are still unanswered. And we'll get right into it. We're going to start with masks, as I just said. Disney's no longer going to require masks for any guest that is fully vaccinated. Any guest 2 and up that is not fully vaccinated must continue to wear that face covering indoors, except when dining, which does leave open the idea that they're not going to require masks for anybody outdoors. It's only going to be indoors. Now, Disney used the term must in that language just now, but they also followed that up by saying they're not going to require you to prove that you're vaccinated. No proof of vaccination will be required. Only that guests are going to have to attest that they are in compliance with both Disney's guidelines and with the state's guidelines. The only other exception to the mask rule will be on the Toy Story parking lot, which they also announced is going to be opening on June 18th. Anybody riding the bus, or I should say all guests riding the bus, must wear a mask. So please be considerate of that, by the way, when you get on the bus, because I know a lot of folks are going to try to object. They're going to try to object. I'm putting this out there for you and to the universe and tell this to everybody else you know. Don't yell at the bus drivers. If you don't, if you have a problem with that policy, just walk. You know what I mean? Just don't take the bus. Everybody who gets on the bus has to wear a mask. Don't leave your masks at home if you're trying to ride the bus to get into Disneyland. Now, one thing that they didn't specify or didn't make specifically clear is for those guests ages 2 to 11. I mention this because they can't get vaccinated. Therefore, a child cannot attest that they are in compliance with the vaccination guidelines because they can't get vaccinated. So what do we do with those guests? It sounds like kids 2 to 11 may still have to wear a mask, at least indoors. One thing I'm going to do when I'm in the parks tomorrow is try to observe as much of that as possible to give a clear idea if, in terms of the policy, but also enforcement. I'm trying to see what kind of enforcement might be happening in that regard. So stay tuned to FreshBaked on that one. Oh, and then one final note on masks. All of that we've just discussed is just for guests. It is my understanding that cast members will still be required to wear masks, and this is independent of the state's guidelines or Disney's. This is an OSHA thing, as I understand it. OSHA has their own thing that they're doing, and so for the short term at least, I would expect cast members to still be wearing masks. Social distancing. Per the announcement, Disney said they're going to relax all of their social distancing guidelines, and the language that they use in the update is that they're going to have guests self-determined what is the correct, or self-distance from other guests. So basically what that means is do like I do on a normal basis a year ago, 2 years ago, and don't stand right up next to the person in front of you in the queue, because there's no reason to do that. That doesn't get you on the ride any sooner. Go ahead and give that person a few feet of space. I like to do that. I like it when other people do it for me as well. Please be aware of people around you. There is absolutely no reason that you need to be right behind me, okay? There's no reason for that. Anyway, sorry, get on my soapbox there for a second. So don't expect any of those markings on the ground, no markings at all in the queues. I'm also probably not gonna expect any of the plexiglass in the queues or on the ride as well. That's my thought. They don't mention that in the update, but I mean, it seems logical if they're gonna do all this other stuff. I will say that you probably will see plexiglass dividers where there is guest and cast member interaction. That's part of the OSHA, requirements as well, or OSHA requirements for employees. So there might be exceptions as far as that goes, but anywhere where it's just for guests, I'm thinking they're going to be gone. All right, one final thing mentioned in the update on the Disneyland website is regarding reservations. They basically confirmed that the reservation system will remain in place. No timetable is given, obviously, and that's because I don't think that there is a timetable. I would not be surprised to see the reservation system stick around for a long while, perhaps permanently. I don't know. It's a tough one. But Disney really does love the reservation system, and I think they're going to try to find every reason they can to keep that going. So don't expect the reservation system to go away anytime soon. Now, there are a lot of other questions that relate to this news, and the balance of those questions were not answered by the Disneyland update, so this is where I'm going to try to do my best to give you at least my educated or informed opinion on what might happen, or in some cases just a plain guess. And we'll start with the trams. I've been saying for weeks that we won't see the trams come back until we are at full capacity and there are no social distancing requirements. So that day has come. Now it's just a question of, now, when are the trams going to happen? It would not surprise me for it to happen at any point in the future. But one thing I will say is that it probably is still going to take a little bit of time. They've got to train cast, and they've got to make sure that the trams are running. The trams haven't run probably in about a year, so they've got to test out all the trams. They got to practice all that kind of thing. So it may still be a few weeks before we see a tram operating. But having said that, perhaps they're doing this kind of thing after hours. I'm not sure. I don't know. Do they do training and ride vehicle testing of the trams at midnight? That's a good question, because obviously they can't do it during the day. They can't do it because they're using all that space. But it would not surprise me to see them running tomorrow, but it also would not surprise me for it to take a couple of weeks, I think. Same will be the case for the monorail. If not tomorrow, soon. I can say that intel that I've been getting suggests that they already have been working on getting the track ready. I think they've been running the monorail after hours. I'm not positive on that. There's not a lot of training as far as cast members go, because there's only a couple casts that operate the monorail, so it would be limited in that sense. So again, I would say if it's not right away, it'll be just a matter of weeks. People want to know about Maxpass and Fastpass. Will they return? Obviously, the answer to that question is a hard yes. Disney definitely is in the Maxpass and Fastpass business. We saw already Whipslingers. They built a Fastpass queue. They built a Fastpass station for Avengers Campus. So they're in that business. Again, it's a question of when, not if. No word from Disney, no word privately that I'm hearing on the ground. But this was one of those situations where I feel like the park needs to be fully operational before they start getting into Maxpass and Fastpass. So that could be a couple of months, I'm thinking. It depends on what you define as fully operational. That's my guess. It's not going to happen right away, but it will happen. All right, some have asked, how is this going to affect Avengers Campus? Not at all, really. Well, at least not in a way that you want it to, not in a good way. Avengers Campus, the land, and Whipslingers, the ride, both were operating at very close to full capacity already. If you've been in there, you've seen the videos. There's a lot of people in Avengers Campus, and with the Whipslingers attraction is already built for social distancing to begin with, so it wasn't much. Whatever they can add to this, to the Whipslingers in terms of ride capacity is minimal. It won't affect your ability to get a virtual queue reservation, for example. Those are still going to go away like that at 7 a.m. And there's still going to be a standby queue. It's still going to be difficult to get in. The challenges for this is going to exist. It's going to be a thing for a little while still. I would say probably a few months at least, maybe into the winter season. How about live entertainment, fireworks, parades, Dapper Dans? I have a good feeling about fireworks for the 4th, but everything else is kind of up in the air. You may remember, actually, before COVID, I got the feeling that Disney was trying to wean us off the big fireworks show, Disneyland Forever. It would not surprise me at all, for example, to see, maybe we'll get a full fireworks show for the 4th of July, but after that, we're probably going back to Mixed Magic. I don't know if you guys remember Mixed Magic, but that was the thing that was happening before the parks closed. Now, Mixed Magic did have some fireworks, so there's that if you're into that, but mostly it was about projections and the music. So it would not surprise me at all for that to be the thing, and for there to be less reliance on the big shows like Disneyland Forever. As for Fantasmic, I'm not even sure if they've begun rehearsals or testing for the show, mostly because they couldn't, they can't. It's very obvious when you're training for Fantasmic or when you're testing for Fantasmic, it's very obvious, and we haven't seen that. So they haven't been doing anything like that. So it could be a few months again before we see Fantasmic back on Tom Sawyer's Island. Same for parades. They can't just flip a switch and start running the parades again. In this case, I think that there's a lot of cast involved in this, and I'm not even sure if they have the whole cast. But once they do have a cast ready to go, they still have to then rehearse and go through all that and make sure that all the floats are running correctly, and that's a difficult thing to do. So again, I'm expecting a few months at least for parades to return. And same again for World of Color, though in this case, the World of Color delays might be more due to a refurb that they were doing for the show, which goes back a while, I think. But I'm a little uncertain on this because some of the information that I'm getting privately is kind of contradicting. So I'm not sure where we stand on that. I'm gonna have to get put more feelers out there and see if I can figure out what's happening with World of Color. For now, I would say it's still a long ways off. And then finally, as far as street shows go, we know already that the Disneyland Band is coming back, as well as the Pearly Band and the Main Street Piano Player, just a few days. I don't know anything about the other shows, namely like the Dapper Dance. Haven't heard anything about Dapper Dance, but that's a situation that I think they could easily, that's much less difficult to get going again. Rehearsals can be done at any time, anywhere, backstage, at home, what have you. So I feel like they can get Dapper Dance up and I wouldn't be surprised. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Dapper Dance tomorrow or this weekend or something like that. It could be soon, but I haven't heard anything official, not from Disney, not privately. Okay, this is a good question here. This is an interesting one that came up during the live stream, and it's regarding park hopping and whether or not they're going to keep the 1 p.m. thing. For now, you have to commit to a park. You buy a park hopper, you commit to Disneyland. You can't go to DCA till 1 o'clock. You could stay in Disneyland if you want, but you can't go to DCA till 1. It used to be, obviously, back in the day, you could park hop at any time. You buy a park hopper, you can go at 9 a.m., noon, 1, 4, whatever. I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. I'm inclined to think it's going to stay for a little while, if only because the 1 p.m. thing was not so much a COVID thing or even a social distancing thing. Obviously, they're not worried about one side getting more crowded than the other, because if that were the case, then they wouldn't have sold the park hopper to begin with. It has to do with reservations. I think it has to do with how they determine whether or not a park is sold out. And you can't determine if a park is sold out unless somebody commits to a park when they buy a park hopper, and they have to say, I'm going to Disneyland with my park hopper. But then what's the point of buying a park hopper? So then you have to say, okay, well, we're going to let them go to DCA, but at what time? What's a reasonable time? It's a very fascinating, detailed, nuanced situation that I've checked with Disney. I've asked them what they're going to do. I'm waiting to hear back, but I don't expect there to be any resolution on the 1 p.m. thing in the short term. It may be a little while before we figure out or have any sort of change before, that it's wide open. So stay tuned for FreshBaked on that. That's going to be something that I'm going to be watching very closely. Will park capacity go up? Short answer, it already has. You just don't know it yet. You go to the parks today, they're going to be operating at limited capacity. You can feel it, you can see it. The lines are short. Everything is pretty much easy to do at Disneyland. Tomorrow is when you'll start. They've already sold the tickets, I guess is what I'm saying. They've already sold the tickets. They've already seen the reservations filled up. We've been watching Disney drop reservations into June for weeks now. They keep dropping more and more reservations. That is in preparation. They knew already that they were going to open on June 15th, and they were getting prepared for that. So what does that mean for the park? I'm expecting it to be busy tomorrow. It's doubtful they're going to go straight to full capacity. They're not going to go right to 100%, but it's also, they're not going to stay at 35%. It's going to be somewhere in the middle. It has to be. The difficulty with determining whether or not they're operating at 100% capacity, because they're not going to tell us. They don't say we're at full capacity. I still don't think they've done that at Walt Disney World. But the difficulty with doing that is that the park so very rarely ever did achieve 100% max capacity. We're talking the holidays, Christmas, and New Year's. But otherwise, the park normally operated around 60 or 70% of full capacity. And that's where the conversation starts to get confusing with some guests, because people conflate the idea of a busy day with full capacity. It can be busy, it can even be very busy at Disneyland and still not approach full capacity, still plenty of people that they could let in. So when we go to the parks today or tomorrow, let's say, it'll be difficult to say if that's the max capacity that they let people in, if they sold all the tickets, or if the capacity is higher and not everybody's there. Because, as I mentioned, in most cases, Disney doesn't sell out. As for tomorrow, I'm expecting busy, possibly very busy, but not max. That's what I'm expecting tomorrow. Stay tuned. Watch FreshBaked. Going to film a whole bunch of stuff tomorrow. We're going to show you everything, including how busy the park looks and feels. So that's park capacity. What about on attractions and in restaurants? I mean, I have to think it's only logical that those would both increase. I don't think we're going to see any of that every other row type business that we saw in Small World or Pirates. I think we're going to get a full stretching room in the Haunted Mansion. I think all of that's going to happen. Restaurants, the only thing I'm not sure about yet is standby. But restaurants, you're going to see full tables at restaurants. You know, they're going to fill, hopefully, you know, all 50 tables at the Blue Bayou. But I'm expecting at least full-ish, at least. I'm expecting to be able to go through the entire interior queue, Indiana Jones, the whole queue, Rise of the Resistance. We're going to go through the queue again. Now, I don't know if this is going to be all the attractions, but I'm expecting to see a lot of attractions tomorrow be operating at full capacity. Stay tuned. I'll be filming that. I'm not sure where I'm going to go. I'm going to go on Rise. I'm going to try to make sure I get on Rise for one, because I want to see if we can get through that queue. But any attraction that doesn't achieve full capacity tomorrow, it'll just be a matter of time. And if it can't, it's probably because, not because they're trying to do any kind of social distancing, but for some other reasons, i.e. staffing or something like that. Same for restaurants. There's going to be a few restaurants that still aren't open. Pizza Planet, Hungry Bear, I don't think those are going to be open yet. That is more an issue of getting staff and getting supplies into the restaurant. Okay, and finally, character meet and greets. I have not heard anything from anybody on the ground or you know, from Disney directly about what their plans are for character meet and greets. But having said that, the reason why we do character meet and greets right now the way we do is because of social distancing. So again, like all things else, you remove social distancing from the equation, it's only logical that it would return to the way it was. So I'm prepared for anything tomorrow. I'm prepared for anything. I'm prepared for being able to go up and meet Mickey on the street, you know, there at Town Square, maybe even give him a hug, who knows? That could be a thing. Or I would just as easily not be surprised if they continue to do the distant meet and greets. Anything's possible on that. We're going to find out tomorrow. Stay tuned to Fresh Baked. And that's it. If I didn't get to your question specifically in this FAQ, leave a question in the comments below and I'll try to answer your question directly. But I will say that in most cases, the answer to your question isn't an if, it's going to be a when. It's not if a thing is going to come back, it's about when. And in most cases, I do feel like we're going to be fully operational by winter, by Thanksgiving or Christmas or something like that. And that includes things like fireworks and Phantasmic and parades and that kind of thing. I have a feeling that's where we're going to be, and anything that's left out or not running by then will be for an issue unrelated to just getting things started again. Until then, keep watching Fresh Baked. We're going to have all the information you need to be ready for your trip. We are the leading authority on how to Disneyland. Follow us on Instagram at _FreshBaked, on Twitter at FreshBakedDisney, that's fresh with no E, and on TikTok at FreshBakedDisney. Also, if you are a fan of our show and want to show your support, please do consider joining our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/freshbaked. And otherwise, we love you guys very much. Thank you very much for watching. I can't wait to see you guys in the parks, to give you a high five and a hug. Who knows? It'll be all non-socially distant. We'll see you then. Be safe out there. Still, though, nothing wrong with being safe. Be kind to one another. That's free. You know, we can do that anytime. And we'll see you next time, guys. Fresh Baked.